It's Wednesday night, November 4th, and you are tuned into the best fantasy football show on YouTube called The Mock and Roll Show. It's The Mock and Roll Show. Alongside my co-hosts, Damian makes too many trades, Gessel, and John doesn't make enough trades but thinks he is the best team in fantasy football.
7-1.
Woo!
For itself, man.
Yes. By the way, I gotta say, for those of you, who are just joining the show or listening for the first time, so we're all in a league called the League of Thrones, and there's a guy in our league named Jeremy who, every year has, one of the best squads, if not the best squad, in the league. He always fields a great team. He's always in the hunt for the championship. He's won 2, and all of a sudden he went from having this unbelievably good squad, that was, had lost 2 games, and now his team is just decimated because he lost Keenan Allen and everybody's on bye. It's just like, what is going on right now? So, that's the thing about fantasy, guys. Anything can happen at any time, and things can change. But, hey, welcome to the 15th episode of the Mock and Roll Show. Tonight's episode is called Who's Next? So we're going to talk about some running backs that have been forced to step up and put their big boy pants on, or in D'Angelo Williams' case, put his big boy pants back on. We're going to talk about some injury situations regarding wide receivers and see, who's the next man up there that's going to take advantage of that situation and fill that role, and maybe help you guys, pick somebody up that might be out there, or maybe it's just not worth it. There's also a marquee matchup of top-tier fantasy running backs, if you can believe that those still exist right now with all the injuries that have been going on in this crazy NFL season, but a great marquee matchup between top fantasy running backs this weekend, and more. So anyway, it's good to see you guys again. I know we can't always say that about each other because sometimes we want to strangle each other.
That's very true.
That's what friends are for. Anyway, so guys, I mean, just when you think the beatings will slow down in the NFL when it comes to injuries and guys trying to take that number 1 running back spot on the team where they're in a shared system. I mean, here we go again. More key players going down, and I mean, now, Damien, real quick, or John, actually, I'll start with Damien. Damien, what is the latest news on Matt Forte's injury, and not just as relates to the team, but from a fantasy perspective?
Yeah, the latest news is that John Fox is not going to give us the latest news on Matt Forte's injury. So it looked like an MCL sprain of who knows what severity. They said initially that he's going to miss for sure this week and probably next week. Beyond that, we have no idea and don't expect to know because Fox ain't telling.
Now, John, J3, can you do me a favor? Can you tell me what your fake made-up sources that don't actually exist, but for entertainment standpoint, can you just give me some fake news report that counters Damien's?
John Fox apparently doesn't like Matt Forte and actually shipped him to Canada for the foreseeable future.
Now, is it because that John Fox, assumes that he'll become more polite because everybody is way too polite in Canada?
Well, no, it's because Matt Forte kept asking, "What does the fox say?" and he doesn't like that.
Oh!
I read it.
So, Damien, coming back to you and now taking that actually well done joke and bringing this all full circle. So, yeah. Damien, if the question is regarding Matt Forte's injury, what does the fox say? The answer would be nothing right now. I knew there was a reason I liked you guys. All right, but hey, let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of these guys that are stepping into roles. And let's actually start, since we're talking about the Bears. Let's start with Jeremy Langford. There are some, Damien, as you were talking about off the air with me, there are some who say that he's a very good, but most likely, backup caliber talent coming out of the combine. Then there are those who say, within the Bears organization, and some of the Chicago media saying that Langford has shown in camp and in practices that he can really step in and make a difference. So let me ask you, what do you think? If you're a guy who just lost Forte and you happen to have the handcuff or you're able to snag him, do you feel like you put him in with as much confidence, or do you try and make a move? Or I mean, what do you feel?
Yeah, I think it depends on your situation. The nice thing is it sounds like the Bears are going to make him the feature back. So volume is going to be on his side. And in fantasy football, when you talk about running backs, volume is the name of the game, as you guys know. So if he gets 20 carries or 18 carries and gets a couple catches, he's not going to do what Forte did. But I can't presume to know. I mean, I'm not expecting him to be Todd Gurley because he's not Todd Gurley.
Right.
He'll be an RB2, I think, just based on volume alone.
Let me ask you this. Actually, I'll throw this one over to John. John, let's just not looking at matchups right now, for this weekend and whatnot with Jeremy Langford. But let me just get kind of a ballpark, estimate from you. If I told you that this week, Matt Forte, could get 15 points in fantasy this week, right? What do you think Jeremy Langford will put up in his place?
10 to 11, I would say somewhere in that range. It's only because they are going to, listen, Langford's going to be the bell cow. I believe he will get relieved some by Kadeem Carey, but again, it's going to be the Langford show. But I think with this happening, I really think that they're going to, again, with Forte, you're looking at more third and seconds, third and thirds. Now, without him there, you might be looking at longer third downs. Unfortunately, you're going to have to put a little bit more pressure on Jay Cutler to move the ball. So I think you should see a little bit of an uptick in Martellus Bennett and Alshon Jeffrey.
That's funny. I was literally just about to ask you that question. I was about to ask you how much of a difference you think this makes for
I think it'll be an uptick. I don't think it's going to be a dramatic change because I think Langford will do a good enough job to kind of keep it balanced. But I think that it's going to be a little bit of an uptick, not a great one, but now when they're down the goal line, it's not going to be pound Langford down there. I think it's going to be throw to Martellus Bennett.
So would you say that between those two guys that you're talking about, you think it creates maybe a 2.5 to 3 points per guy uptick?
Yeah, I think so.
Damien, you feel you?
No, not at all. I don't buy that for a second. I don't think it's going to significantly change the values of anybody. If anything, I think losing a guy as talented as Forte knocks down everybody a little bit. Case in point, and Johnny and I had this conversation off the air. Case in point would be, for me, Green Bay. You lose Jordy Nelson, people are like, oh, Jordy Nelson's gone. I guess they're going to have to give the ball to Eddie Lacy more. It doesn't work that way. When you lose a piece that's so important to the offense, the whole offense suffers a little bit. So I don't think Jeffrey's value is going to go up or down.
With that being said, Damien, now when you're looking at that situation, looking at that view, now if you're saying, hey, my number one receiver went down, I got to run the ball more. No, it's not really like that because you have other receivers, or you have 2 or 3 other receivers that are on the field all the time. Now, we're talking about running back. Running back is that center guy. Now, when you take him out and you put a new guy in, a new body, that you may not get the production there, you got to go elsewhere for that production. Where in Green Bay's case, again, keep in mind, we got to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. They have Aaron Rodgers there, and he can get the ball to those other playmakers on the field, even when that one piece is missing. Where you're looking at Jay Cutler, where he hasn't been great as of late, but without that feature running back now, he's gonna have to look for production elsewhere on the field. And I think it's impossible for those guys not to get some type of uptick, whether it be a ground level up a little bit or up here and a little bit more. I think they still have to get a little bit more volume out there because they're not going to have that star running back there that they can lean on.
Now, I just want to come in here real quick, gentlemen. And I want to say, actually, I could support both of your arguments. I think you both make excellent points, right? But but a little bit of me, I'm really split on this, actually, because I think they're both valid points. But I actually lean a little bit more, just a little bit more, I think, towards Damien's actually side on this. And here's why. Because absolutely, I agree with you. You talk about great quarterbacks. You're talking about guys like Aaron Rodgers. You're talking about Phillip Rivers. He's a very talented quarterback. You talk about guys like Ben Roethlisberger. You know what I mean? So and even Tony Romo. You can put Tony Romo in that conversation too. But here's the thing. Yes, there are other targets. Yes, there are other mouths you can feed. But I don't think there's any question, and I believe the numbers. If I had the numbers for each of these situations over the number of games, you could pull it up. I don't think there's any question that the Packers' offense, their offensive numbers have been down, and I think it's fair to attribute that now instead of going Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, the next guy, it's Randall Cobb, and hopefully somebody else can do something with the damn ball. You know, when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, you know, Tony Romo and Des Bryant and Jason Witten, you know, that's a thing. You know what I mean? And that's been a thing. That's been the staple there. As soon as Des Bryant goes down, that passing game became a train wreck. Now I'm actually, you know, while I did just trade for the guy, and you know, Phillip Rivers is always good for throwing 40 or 50 passes a game, that kind of thing. I am very concerned that now, and we're going to talk about this guy later on a bit, but now with Keenan Allen going down, yes, they have Gates, you know what I mean, but and yes, they have Stevie Johnson, but it's not Keenan Allen, and so how much does that offense suffer? So, John, I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I agree that running back is the most valuable thing. I also understand where Damien's coming from, that when you lose that star guy, it's not like, oh, well, somebody else is just going to be that guy. It's we hope we can get 80% of what our star guy did.
Let me say one thing. So DeAndre Hopkins, I just looked at statistics. His best statistical games of the season came when Arian Foster was on the field. So when he lost Foster, and Hopkins is going to be fine no matter what. But when he lost Foster, he lost some of his yardage totals actually. If you go and you look at those games,
I'll go as far as to say that, like, and you want to use that situation. Here's what I think. As terrible as that Texans situation is in a lot of ways, you know what I mean, just in general, I think that team is worse off if Foster is healthy and DeAndre Hopkins goes down than if DeAndre Hopkins is healthy and Arian Foster goes down. Do you know what I'm? Do you got? I mean, would you guys agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Does that run counter to the point that we're making?
No. I'm saying that DeAndre Hopkins, you know, that star receiver, I think is more valuable if you only have that one guy. That's what I'm saying.
But you're talking about a Chicago Bears team who has a top 4, top 5 wide receiver there.
Right. What I'm saying is I think, you know, that team hasn't. I mean, unless I'm missing something, Damien, you're a Bears guy, right? I mean, was that offense really firing on all cylinders while Alshon Jeffrey was missing all that time?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all right. I guess from a fantasy perspective, but I'm not putting Alshon Jeffrey in the same category as, you know, outside of fantasy. I'm not putting Alshon Jeffrey in the same category as AJ Green and Jordy Nelson and, you know, and Julio Jones.
I put Alshon Jeffrey above AJ Green.
I think you
not just because I have him.
I think you might be drinking. No.
Really?
No.
I think he's below Green, but I think he's in that category. To me,
maybe, but I think it's, if anything, it's separated by one spot, if that.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
It's not like, you know, it's not like we're comparing, you know, Moncrief from Indy to AJ Green. It's, you know, not that far, but it's close. They're very close. I put them over. I have them valued higher, but
I would say they're separated by Moncrief.
No, they're not.
I'm just kidding.
Not at all.
All right, next guy on this list, talking about injured backs. Let's go to the obvious one here, guys. D'Angelo Williams showed that he could run the ball and that he could produce in that offense. You know, even when they were missing a piece with Martavis Bryant being out, they had Le'Veon Bell come back, and obviously D'Angelo Williams took the presumed back seat that he was supposed to. You know, and now, you know, with what looked like an absolutely horrific leg injury to Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams comes back into the fold. They just got Ben Roethlisberger back. They've got Antonio Brown. They've got Martavis Bryant. Do you think the show just, Johnny? Do you think the show just goes on? The show must go on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and you saw a glimpse of this in the first 2 games of the season. The show's going to go on. D'Angelo Williams looked better than he's looked in the last couple years that I can remember. So I think he's going to be fine. I think with Big Ben there, kind of directing traffic, I think we're going to be okay there. I don't think that. Listen. Le'Veon Bell is a phenomenal talent. Do not get me wrong, but I think the way that offense runs and the way Ben can get the ball out to those really good young receivers and have DeAngelo Williams look as healthy as he's been in the last couple of years, as he really electric. He's been electric when he's had the ball, especially the first 2 weeks. So I think he's rested. I think he's ready to take on this role, and I think it's just going to be business as usual in Pittsburgh.
Now, Damien, Johnny brings up an excellent point that I was going to get to, and you said a key word there. You said that healthy, his health. Now, my thing is now when he was in Carolina, he seemed to be injury plagued, always nagging. Jonathan Stewart had the same thing. I mean, in Carolina, you're talking about a team that is for all intents and purposes, when you look at the running backs and the way Cam Newton plays, that play calling is a run-first play call. Whereas in Pittsburgh, it's more of a balanced play call, I think you could say, and if anything, it leans a little bit more actually towards the pass. Ben Roethlisberger throws the ball a ton. I mean, he just does. So I feel like the system that they have in place in Pittsburgh benefits and will help DeAngelo Williams stay healthy. I guess my question for you, Damien, is taking all of that into consideration, do you believe that as the bell cow that DeAngelo Williams will in fact stay healthy for the rest of this season?
I think that it's something that you don't have the luxury to worry about as fantasy owners in 2015 with the devastation at running back. I think I agree with Johnny completely. I think DeAngelo Williams is an every week RB1 until proven otherwise. I think he's going to be 85 to 90% of what Bell was, and I think that if you can trade for him right now and you can give up, if somebody just views him as like a replacement level guy, I think you go and you do that right now as a fantasy owner. I think he's going to be an RB1. I mean, geez, guys, I mean, we won't go through this exercise to be a pain in the butt, but can you name 10 guys you'd rather have than DeAngelo Williams at running back the rest of the year? I mean, it's awful to say that, but I don't think there are 10.
No, well, I don't think anybody would question that. And I mean, you talk about, what we did, for the first several weeks of this show and then some, and that is we talked about the sauce. And I don't think there are too many running backs that you can even possibly think of. And I'm even talking about the guys that are on top right now, okay? We talk about Adrian Peterson being one of the best running backs in football who's going to get the job done. We can talk about Todd Gurley and how he's exploded on the scene, right? We could talk about Devonta Freeman. But aside from Devonta Freeman, who I think is on an equal situational level, but I would take Devonta Freeman as the better back. I mean, really, is there anybody else besides Devonta Freeman that maybe is in a better situation than DeAngelo Williams? I think, if anything, that is the biggest thing that DeAngelo Williams has going for him. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why I think you have to put him in that discussion. I think you put him in the top. You could arguably put him in the top 3 right now, and he's coming off the bench. And you talked about. And here's the interesting thing. This is you talk about the luxury of things that don't exist in fantasy football. Well, here's one of those here's one of those things that happens in fantasy football when a stud bell cow comes back. Is this? You talk about the opportunity if you can go trade for the guy. Right now, Damien, in just about 80% of fantasy football leagues, you can just go put your waiver claim in and hope you're the top guy. Because he was only before yesterday, he was owned in 20.3% of all ESPN fantasy leagues. I mean, you're not even trying to trade at that point,
Yep.
So, and certainly if you get the guy with your waiver pick, you're stacked at running back, and then maybe you picked him up to trade him for something else you need, So, right. But and guys, the third guy I have on this list, he came out like a ball of fire the first 2 weeks. He was the starting guy. I want to start with you, Damien. I want to get your thoughts, your realistic expectations going forward for a guy like Chantrick West out in Kansas City who took over. When they thought it was going to be, a complete committee system, he seems to have absolutely just taken it and said, watch how I do this job to Niall Davis and DeAnthony Thomas.
First of all, it's depressing to me. I watched the early game. I watched a big chunk of the game against the Lions. That was a depressing game for a lot of reasons. That was a sad state of affairs. It's just depressing every time you see the Chiefs hand the ball off and it's not Jamal Charles. Because Jamal Charles, I don't care if he's on your fantasy football team or not, but he's just awesome to watch because he's so good.
Hang on, Johnny. Let me cue up the tissue graphic and pass it.
Anyone who has had Jamal Charles on the team, you can fast forward this part of the show.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Timmy.
It's sad, but I don't think Sharkandrick West is a special talent, but I don't think he needs to be. He's going to be a rest of season RB2, high-end RB2, because they're giving him as many carries as he can handle every single week, and he's getting catches. It's not a great team. He's not a great player, but it doesn't matter in 2015. He's a high-end RB2 until proven otherwise, and some weeks he's going to give you RB1 value.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to apologize, Sharkandrick West, when you do watch this episode, I'm sure you will, or I'm sure you'll listen to it. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. It was an honest mistake. And if you just want to go ahead and send me, tickets to next week's game, I'll be happy to sign them and send you back a faxed copy. So, Johnny, you were going to say.
No, the only thing I say with Sharkandrick West is buyer beware a little bit with him. Because, yes, his first game he played, he didn't do very well. It was maybe just kind of cold feet, nervousness. He didn't look fantastic. The last 2 weeks, he's been a starter there for 3 weeks now. The last 2 weeks, he's looked good. But I have a sneaky feeling where if he has a stretch of maybe 1 or 2 games where he kind of falls in that, not really producing, that well, I think you can see a little bit more of Niall Davis getting a role. I think that is going to be, and Andy Reid has shown this previously. If he's going with someone, as long as they're hot, he's going to go with them. But if he sees someone else that's stepping up, if this guy's not producing, he's going to go with the other guy. So
I don't have no problem with that, Johnny. There's only one issue with that. Niall Davis sucks. That's the only.
With that being said, there's a lot of people that listen. You
I
said
like Niall Davis.
Yeah, well, with that being said, there's a lot of guys who may not look like they're that great, but when they're given that role, handed the reins, because Niall Davis has never handed the reins yet. Sharkandrick West was given the reins. If something happens where he's just not doing anything, and they hand him the reins and he explodes, and it could happen, just buyers beware, because I don't think that they're totally committed to West. I think they're committed to him as far as his production goes.
They might give him the reins, and you can believe that. Anyway, John hates me for that reference. Anyway, so now let's move on, and then we're gonna change gears from running backs after this next topic. So there's been two situations, guys, that for fantasy owners has been incredibly frustrating. I've been a part of this frustration. Damien's been a part of this frustration. The waiver wires have been a part of this frustration in some leagues. So let me ask you a question, and John, I'm going to start with you. Okay, we're going to factor in the struggles of the parties involved here.
Okay.
But I also want to bring into account the all-important first S in sauce, which is situation. Because we've already talked tonight, just look at D'Angelo Williams. Situation makes such a difference, not just from an NFL team standpoint, but a fantasy standpoint. You guys will both agree. So here's my question. Given the struggles on both sides of this, would you rather have C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman and that situation, or would you like to have Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard in that situation? I already have my favorite going into that question, and for me it's the Bengals situation because that offense just seems phenomenal. But I want to know what you think. And I also want to know, when you give me the team situation you prefer, which back do you believe in more the rest of the season?
Okay. I believe in the pairing of C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman. Listen, that defense is record-setting defense. That defense is, and I downplayed them last week, saying that, and I'll comp to this. I said Denver's defense is good, but I don't know how good they're gonna be. They really haven't played anyone yet. And when you keep Aaron Rodgers at 70-some yard passing, you're a pretty good defense. So that defense is gonna keep that ball in Peyton Manning's hands. And the running back I like in there the most is Ronnie Hillman. He had a great game. I think they're, as an organization, I think they're gonna start leaning on Hillman to be that guy. Where C.J. Anderson just hasn't found that match he had last year for whatever reason. I'm sure there's plenty of reasons. I'm sure everyone has kind of their different reasons why. But yeah, I'm saying Hillman and the Broncos, I think, have the better situation. Again, they're undefeated.
Damien, what do you got?
I'm gonna agree with Sean. I'm gonna go with the Bengals. I think the Bengals have shown what a powerful offense they are. You have to take Andy. It's crazy, But again, it's 2015. You have to take Andy Dalton. I can't believe I'm saying it, but you have to take Andy Dalton over Peyton Manning in 2015. You just do. So I'm gonna say them. I agree with Johnny. I think both backfields can have value moving forward. So I agree with him there. I think Anderson and Hillman, you have to like Hillman a little bit more than Anderson right now, for sure. I think both of them can have low-end RB2 or flex value, or maybe a little higher. Yeah. I like of the whole deal, the one I like the most by a little bit is Jeremy Hill in the Bengals backfield. Bernard has looked better than Hills to date, no question about that. But I think Hugh Jackson's not going away from Hill.
Just go with Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, yeah. Wolverine's not going away from Hill. If Hill can step it up, he did it a little bit last week. If he can step it up, he can have RB2 value. None of these guys is going to be an RB1 unless somebody gets hurt. But they can all have RB2 value potentially.
Real quick, Damien, just real quick fire answer. Who has the lowest floor of these four backs?
Anderson still.
Johnny?
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. So I just thought that would be a really, I was thinking about it, and I can't think of any other situation, and please, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, these two situations have pretty much been similar, like neck and neck the whole year. Both of them have been almost identical. There's two, talented backs. One is more the bruiser, one is more the finesse runner a little bit. And neither one of them is really seemingly seems to be able to steal the job from the other one given the opportunity. Is there another situation in the NFL that I'm missing right now that is that same?
I'll tell you what, Green Bay's getting there because Eddie Lacy has not looked good all year. And when James Starks has gotten the opportunities, he has looked good, as in some cases better than Eddie Lacy.
No, I agree with you. I would agree with you there to a point. The thing with Lacy, and again, this is all talk, and everybody always likes to fluff the pillow to make it seem like it's gonna be better. It's gonna be more, it's gonna be good, right? They're saying that with the Lacy getting the rest he's been getting, that he's healthier. Now they're also saying he looks a little bit bigger than he did at the start of the season, which is a concern, right? Because I mean, can he really get bigger? But no, there is concern. They are saying that Lacy is finally healthy. Such as just like Andrew Luck. With James Starks, I thought we talked about this last week on the air, and if we didn't, then I had this discussion with somebody off the air. But James Starks always seems to look good when he's coming off the bench and filling in for a guy who's banged up or performing poorly. But throughout his career, when slotted into the starting role and being the guy, he's like, wait, how do I do this again? What do I do?
I think we saw this week against the Broncos what Lacy and Starks are going to be moving forward. Lacy got 11 carries. Starks got 5. Starks had 9 yards on 5 carries. Lacy had 38 on 11 and the touchdown. I think Starks is going to be exactly what he's always been, which is he gets a 30% share in that backfield, and that's all he's going to get. And he's a handcuff.
To John's point, though, I think if Lacy continues to struggle, I would say even over the next 2 weeks, if Lacy is struggling mightily, I think that 30% share could change to a 44-85% share. I think that it's entirely possible, and I'd even go as far as to say if this week ends up being very bad.
I'll tell you right now, Lacy's a donut away from being a fullback.
That's true. He's latter-day Jerome Bettis.
He's the offensive version of was it Roy Williams for the Cowboys?
Yeah.
I think Bill Parcells said that he's a dinner roll away from being a linebacker.
Crossing that topic off. Next up, boys. Let's talk about what this show is called, which is Who's Next. So let's talk about the next man up, not just from a fantasy perspective, but also from a team perspective. And back to the conversation we were having earlier about, when a key guy goes down at wide receiver, for example, it's not just like, oh, insert the next guy. He's going to do just as well. There's obviously a bit of a fall off there. So, you talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Steve Smith has been, since he's been there, he's the heart and soul of that team, as far as, at the receiver position. And even at his age, what was Steve Smith, 35, I think?
36.
36? I mean, the guy's still making plays, getting, what feels like 15 targets a game and not missing a beat. Now he goes down with this what is seems like it's going to be a career-ending injury. Although Harbaugh says he doesn't feel like Steve Smith wants to go out that way, so you may see him back next year. We'll see. My question to you guys, and John, I'll start on you with this one, is who's the next man up now? Who fills that void? And if you had to buy into somebody from a fantasy perspective, who do you buy into? In Baltimore as a receiver.
It's tough. I guess Kamar Aiken kind of comes to mind right off the bat. Him and the tight end there.
Crockett
Gilmore. Crockett Gilmore, I think, is maybe a sneaky, tight end might get some more work. But yeah, it's tough sledding there right now. I'm just looking who else they have. I think they have Marlon Brown there, Kamar Aiken, Rashid Perriman.
But the fact that we have to look up who these guys are, I think that tells you everything you need to know. And you know what, Damien, I'm going to ask you the question I asked John before. Okay, again, all situations, you know what I mean? Matchups aside and everything. Let's say Steve Smith is worth 13 points, a game, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think you get from Aiken?
Oh boy, 7. Kamar Aiken, I don't think he's particularly good. He's going to have volume. He's going to have some volume, so he'll get some targets. I do have one sort of sleeper name out there. If you're totally desperate, if you're in a 14-team league and you have nothing at receiver, and Kamar Aiken's not there, Chris Givens, I think might get a shot to do a little bit more. So I wouldn't rush to pick him up, but.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. And then talking about how, again, what we were discussing before, how one impacts the other. Damien, what do you feel the fantasy impact is, whether it be, positive, negative, or flat? What is the impact now, to Justin Forsett?
Yeah, I actually was thinking about this, and I just don't ever think it's good for a team's major weapons to go down. I understand that the idea is, well, now we have to lean on this player, in Forsett more, and maybe that's true to some small degree. But listen, if drives stall, tell me how that helps the running back.
Well, not just that. You got to imagine that puts another guy in the box.
It might, yeah, it might. But the big thing, that people underestimate. You think about the players in a vacuum. You think, okay, well, we have Justin Forsett, we have Steve Smith, we have these guys. But the reality of it is that when the offense gets on the field, they have to move the ball. And so if you lose a major piece on your offense and your drive stalls, that doesn't help anybody on that fantasy team. I think it hurts everybody.
Yeah. John, I'm going to come back to you with the same question here, just to see what you have to add there. Do you feel like that Forsett's value goes up, down, or stays flat?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Damien. When you unless you're the the Carolina Panthers, who I don't know how they're producing without their number one receiver there and still being undefeated while losing Kelvin Benjamin. I think they're the exception to the rule. But I think he suffers maybe a hair, because again, Joe Flacco is just not a great quarterback. He's not a good fantasy quarterback, and losing really your big weapon, it's going to be tough, especially when you're in those long, 3rd and 10s.
Well, John, it's funny you should bring that up. You talk about the Panthers. I know that traditionally, in every sport, they take the guy who has the best stats and he becomes the MVP. But when you talk about most valuable player, the guy who is the most who has the most value on their team for what they bring to their squad, I mean,
Tom Brady.
I might be missing something, but I might be missing something. But seriously, I mean, couldn't you argue for what he's carried? Couldn't you argue that Cam Newton is the most valuable player on his team?
There's no argument there. Cam Newton is the most valuable player there. Kelvin Benjamin was the second most valuable player there until he went down.
But what I mean is, couldn't you argue that Cam Newton is playing like a guy who deserves to be an MVP candidate in the NFL?
Oh, he's in the discussion, absolutely. Yeah. He's done the most with the least.
Right.
This is a team that I did, you did, Damien did. We all kind of wrote them off, saying there's no one there. Who's he going to throw to? He can't throw to himself, and he's making it. Ted Ginn is relevant. God help him. He's definitely drops balls that hit him in the hands, but
you know what else though? This says a lot about Greg Olson as a football player, man. I mean, that guy has stepped up. He's catching his and Benjamin's targets. He's making plays, and as a tight end, most of the time you're coming over the middle, you're taking these shots, in short yardage, and that guy's just like, let's go, let's run the next play, let's keep this ball moving. You know what I mean? So a lot of credit.
Number 2 tight end in fantasy, Greg Olson.
Yep.
No
so
doubt about it.
No, let's lots of props to what they're doing down there with what they have to work with in Carolina. They got a lot of players that are making plays. Talking about guys who go down and next man up, Stevie Johnson comes to mind right away as the guy here. But I mean, is there a guy that you're going to buy into? Maybe an Antonio Gates. If he can stay healthy. Damien, Keenan Allen goes down. He was getting, he felt like DeAndre Hopkins light with the amount of targets he was getting. Every game. Where are the balls going now?
I think they're going to Stevie Johnson. I think they really are. I think they're going to move Stevie Johnson over to the flanker. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong about this. But I think that Johnson and Allen are very similar players. I think they're similar receivers. Allen was playing out of his mind. I don't think, though, and I could be very wrong about this, I don't think that Johnson is a huge downgrade in terms of talent from Keenan Allen. I think those two players are pretty close. I think everybody's going to get a couple more targets because Allen was getting peppered, man. Allen was getting like 15 targets a week. He was getting something crazy. I think Stevie Johnson will get the bulk of those. I think Malcolm Floyd, although I don't want to trust Malcolm Floyd in fantasy if I can help it, he'll get some. Gates will get a few more. Ladarius Green will get a couple more. But I think it's Stevie Johnson. I think he's going to be a nice wide receiver too if that really pans out and he gets all that volume.
Okay, all right. Johnny, anything to add?
The only other person I like there is Dontrell Inman. He's had a couple good games. I think he had a touchdown to this season already. With all those guys being there, so I especially where I think the focus on the defense is going to be, Stevie Johnson is going to be their number one now. I can see Inman, slipping in that slot role or kind of rotating with Malcolm Floyd, and he could have some value. I think that's more maybe deeper leagues, but just a name to kind of put on your radar, maybe put him on your watch list. But yeah, Dontrell Inman. So
hey, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to Mike Tirico or John Gruden talk when the Chargers are playing, but did you guys know that Antonio Gates was a basketball player?
Not
Jared Hayne was a rugby player.
Really? Was he? Funny. Oh, you mean Jared Hayne?
I heard that once.
Yeah, you mean the guy who got cut, and then the guy who got brought into the practice squad.
I think he's a rugby player again.
He's a practice squad player again, so he's probably playing
for rugby season.
Yeah, he's getting ready for rugby season in the NFL.
This is his warm-up.
Hey, so actually, let's talk about the 49ers here, but I'm not going to ask you the question that you may think. I know the 49ers are a complete dumpster fire. They have been all season. Thankfully, as a 49ers fan, I can say we have benched Colin Kaepernick. Thank goodness. Although what worries me is Jim Thompson has said, well, what's that?
You did bench Colin Kaepernick, and thank gosh you got somebody to back him up who's really good. You got Blaine
Gabbert's a good football player.
In what
I've seen him play football before. Oh my God, he's terrible.
I don't even think his own mother would say that.
I play Madden.
Blaine Gabbert's mom right now is like, you know what, Sean? I can't. I'm not on that train with you. My son is not good.
She goes. Blaine Gabbert's mom says, you know what? He's got a face only a mother could love. But stick that helmet on there so I don't have to see it. All right. So here's the thing, guys. Here's my question for you. I understand that apparently we all have this hate for Blaine Gabbert. Apparently Blaine Gabbert is complete garbage from your guys' perspective. My question for you is there any chance that with Blaine Gabbert stepping in under center? Because listen, hold on, Damien. You're shaking your head for those of you who just listened to the podcast, the audio podcast. Damien is shaking his head. Okay. My question for you guys is this: I understand that Blaine Gabbert doesn't have the raw leg, like running talent, or the arm strength, that Kaepernick has. Listen, seriously, guys. My question for you is this: knowing that you have a guy under center who can actually see more than one target, do you think that there's yes, no, he can. He can. Okay? That's something he did in college that Kaepernick did not do. Look at more than one target.
You know who else was good in college? Ryan Leaf. He was good in college, too.
He was good in college.
Anyway, my question for you guys is this. Do you know what? I'm going to save this because it's not even worth it.
No, that's the question.
Is Blake Gabbert an upgrade? Is that what you're saying? Is he an upgrade from Kaepernick? Because he's not.
My question is not, is he an upgrade? My question is, is there a chance, and I'm obviously wasting my time on this, is there a chance that with Blaine Gabbert under center that you see a change in anyone's fantasy value on that team as a result? And
Question.
No. I think within 2 weeks you guys are calling for Dylan Thompson. Who?
Well, according to Jim Tomsula, I know who he is. According to Jim Tomsula, he's just benching Kaepernick this week so he can step back, take a deep breath, and see things from a different perspective. Although Tomsula wouldn't commit to the quarterback after this week. You know what I mean?
You know how I know the 49ers are in terrible shape? You are the biggest 49ers fan I've ever met in my entire life, and you can't pronounce the head coach's name. That's how I know the 49ers are in terrible shape. Tomsula.
It's whatever I say it is because it's stuck.
But no. In all honesty, Sean, and all the listeners, Blaine Gabbert is not an upgrade. He is a downgrade from Colin Kaepernick. He is a terrible NFL.
No such thing.
He might be, and I'd go as far to say he is probably the worst backup in the NFL. And if you look at all the backups across the board, I think he may be the worst. Tell me who's better than he is.
Can we?
Tell me who's worse than he is.
Can we play a little game? How would you rather die? Would you rather die by guillotine or by burning at the stake?
Guillotine, quicker and easier.
Okay, well then I guess Colin Kaepernick is better.
This is the worst segment in the history of the show. Moving on to the next goddamn question. Oh, thank God for audio editing capabilities. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about another team that's going through a quarterback swap. What do you feel like the fantasy impact is in Cleveland for a guy like Barnidge, for a guy like Travis Benjamin, when you're talking about the fact that they're bringing Johnny Manziel back into the fold? Now, my understanding is that before this game, he's only allowed to strike his girlfriend once and get away with it. What do you guys think the fantasy impact is here?
Well, I think those guys kind of stay the same. I think the only person who kind of gets maybe an uptick for me is Benjamin. Listen, with everything being said, Manziel is an exciting quarterback, and I think he's gonna inject the Browns with little excitement, maybe a little swagger, which isn't a bad thing as long as he can stop the turnovers, make good plays. Listen, he's gonna get you some yards, with his feet. Fantasy wise, and that's obviously what we're talking about here. I think fantasy wise, I think he's a top 15, top 20 quarterback. Top 15.
I think those guys will be okay. I agree with Johnny. I think Benjamin will be okay. I would be not nervous about Barnidge. I can't believe Barnidge has been as good as he's been this year. It's crazy. But I think Barnidge might see a slight downtick than more so than Benjamin. So.
All right. Well, I think I tend to agree with you guys. With the way Manziel plays too, I think it will open up the field a little bit. Guys are going to be worried about collapsing and not letting him, take a running lane, and I think that's going to, lead to some good downfield play for both Barnidge and Benjamin if they're able to break off their routes and kind of, move with the play. You know
what? Can we go back to Blaine Gabbert and Colin Kaepernick for a second?
Please, let's do that.
Next question. Let's talk about the New York Jets here. Geno Smith obviously in this week and last week with Ryan Fitzpatrick out. I'm trying to be a professional host here, and it's really difficult talking about Blaine Gabbert, which was the worst decision I've probably made on this show. We saw some Geno Smith last week. My question for you guys is, do you feel like Marshall and Decker are really going to suffer that much with Geno Smith under center? I believe that the answer is yes. I think Fitzpatrick should be the guy. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
is Fitzpatrick coming back?
Fitzmagic should be the starting quarterback there. He's a better quarterback than Geno Smith. I have never been a Geno Smith believer. I think he does not take care of the ball. I think he's almost a little bit like a Colin Kaepernick, where I don't think he reads the defenses that well. I think Fitzpatrick is a field general in every sense of the word. I think.
One word for you: beard.
Yeah, that beard's amazing. He's the offensive version of Brad Kiesel from the
yes, and Eric Weddle.
Yeah, but no, I like Fitzpatrick a lot. I think I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does when he comes in, because a lot of times he comes into a situation where he's coming in as a backup, and for some reason he always ends up being the starter. Whether it's hook or by crook, he's always end up being a starter, and he does well. He did it for the Texans. He did it for the Bills. He's doing it for the Jets. And he's a guy. He's the ultimate professional football player, where he comes in prepared all the time. Listen, the dude's from Harvard. He's a smart guy. So, my hat's off to him. And I hope. I think he's hurt. I think he's banged up. So I think when he's healthy, I really hope that he gets the job back.
Damian, what are your thoughts on the Jets?
I like your question about Marshall and Decker. I actually think there's no difference for me in Marshall's value with Smith or Fitzpatrick. It's Decker, I think, who's going to be hurt if you have Geno Smith in, because I agree with Johnny completely. I don't think Geno Smith reads the field. I was able to this last week against Oakland tap into Geno Smith's mind, and I actually got to read his mind as he was seeing the field. And
that was a short read, huh?
It was a short read, and here's his internal dialogue. Are you guys ready? Brandon Marshall, Brandon Marshall, Brandon Marshall. He just throws the ball to Brandon Marshall. That's his first, second, third, and fourth read. It's Brandon Marshall, so he's just going to pepper Marshall with targets no matter what.
Okay, I am going to go back to Blaine Gabbert. Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. Here's what's sad about this. Wait, here's what's sad about this. Hold on. Just like, here's what's sad about this. Okay? Yeah, go ahead, Damian. Listen, here's the thing, right? It's sad hearing this that you guys would rather have RG3 than Blaine Gabbert.
I would rather have RG3.
Okay, stop. Johnny, Damian, put your hands up like you're Trayvon with that hoodie. Put your hands up. I want to see that you're not. I don't want you to search on the keyboard. Put your hands up.
I would rather have a judging machine than Blaine Gabbert.
Put your hands up. I want to see that you're not searching on the internet when I ask you this question. Put your hands up. Seriously. Okay, Damian, who's the backup quarterback in Atlanta?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you 3 hints and you still won't know.
Okay.
He went to Duke. He's been in the league for 3 seasons. He's 25 years old.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I actually know who this is, but the name's not coming to me. He used to play for the Buffalo Bills. He was behind school.
No, incorrect.
That's what I guess. Well, who is it?
Okay, it doesn't matter because you'd still rather have him than Blaine Gabbert. His name is Sean Renfree.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I definitely want him.
Get the hell out of here. All right. Listen, guys, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show. We don't have to spend the whole 10 minutes on this, but I just wanted to bring to light the fact that we have a premier matchup this weekend between 2 of the only remaining stud fantasy running backs left in out there right now that are healthy. Knock on wood. And I'm talking about, of course, the matchup between the St. Louis Rams and the Minnesota Vikings. So my question for you guys is, actually, here's exactly what I'm going to do. First of all, do you guys believe that without giving names, do you guys both believe that one running back has a far better chance of being the better back on the field that day than the other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you both believe that running back is Todd Gurley?
Yes.
Okay. I kind of had a feeling that would be the case. Now, are you guys simply Johnny? Are you basing that mainly on the fact that the Rams have the better defense?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with it's the eye test, man. He looks like a young Adrian Peterson. He in every facet of the game, and again, and I'll eat crow on this, and I don't mind doing so. I didn't think he was gonna be anything what he is right now. I missed the boat on him.
There's time.
Yeah. But no, man, he looks fantastic. And I know last week we did kind of our little ranking on who we thought the best running back is, and and I'm saying Todd Gurley is the best running back in the league over my heart and my soul, Devontae Freeman. I think Gurley is. Don't shake your head, Damien. You dropped him, man.
I know. That's why I'm shaking my head.
But Todd Gurley is every bit as good as advertised. More so.
Damien, listen. Even if Gurley outperforms AP, I think it's fair to say that you could see because of the matchup, and clearly the matchup there is the running back matchup. I mean, Bridgewater's been looking good. Stephon Diggs is looking like a breakout star right now. He's looking like a great football player. It's funny because at the beginning of the season we talked about how we thought Mike Wallace and Charles Johnson were both going to have good seasons, with Charles Johnson finishing better. Now neither one of those guys you even remember exists there. It's just Adrian Peterson, Teddy Bridgewater, and then Stephon Diggs, and who else plays there? You know what I'm saying? So my question is, Damien, if this just turns into the marquee feature show for both of these backs, I mean, you think it's out of this world to see both of these guys just for pride and ego getting touches? Do you think these guys could both easily clear 130 yards this game?
Well, here's my issue. Here's what I think the struggle is going to be for Todd Gurley. I think that they're going to have him on a pitch count. They have Trey Mason there.
I'm going to do something I haven't done all year. Hang on, Damien. Wait. Okay. Go ahead, Damien. You never sounded better. Johnny, do you think it's possible that we see 130 yards out of both running backs this week? By the way, for our listeners, I just used the mute button for the first time in the history of this show. Damien, what was that?
Nothing.
I guess they could. I actually like Gurley more in this matchup. I'm still a believer in the Rams defense. And listen, AP's looked good this year. He hasn't looked great this year. He looked slower than we're probably used to seeing him. I think that up front for St. Louis and the linebackers are gonna listen. They're gonna keep him balled up a little bit. I think he's still gonna probably rush for over maybe 50 or 60 yards. He'll probably get in the end zone once, but it's not going to be 130 yards for AP against that team.
Damien, I'm about to say a terrible thing, and I'm going to say it anyway, and then I'm going to turn this back over to you and not mute you. Damien, given the fact that Johnny makes the interesting point that Todd Gurley, appears to be a younger like rookie version of Adrian Peterson, what do you think the chances are that mid-game AP takes a switch to him?
Now here on the Mock and Roll Show, we don't condone domestic violence for children. But
I never said I condoned it. It's just a question.
All right.
Just a question. Damien, so going back to talking about Todd Gurley, what do you think Todd Gurley's switch count is?
I honestly, coming back to your initial question, I think both guys could have 130 yards in this game because. And I would agree. I think Todd Gurley has a significantly better chance of doing it because he just. I agree with Johnny. It's the eye test. I think Peterson has looked Johnny's right on the money. He's looked good, not great. But Peterson can break a long one at any time. I think both guys are must starts. I'm ignoring your question, Sean. I'm going back to your original question. I think 130 yards.
Do you not think Todd Gurley is on a switch count?
I think Todd Gurley, they're going to get more carries for Trey Mason. I think next year Todd Gurley's he's going to break out.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh man. By the way, I can't remember who it was. But there was another guy, Damien, that you had made a prediction about that was going to be somebody that was going to be bad, and they've been really good, actually, and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, Devontae Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
You dropped him.
No.
You dropped him. It doesn't matter what you said. You dropped him off your fantasy team.
Yeah, I was bringing the table for Freeman.
I remember a couple guys. How about Derek Carr not finishing as the top 20 fantasy quarterback?
I'm wrong about that. Yeah, totally wrong. Yeah.
He's looked really good though. Let's be honest.
Thought about that. He's looked great.
That team. We have a couple of minutes left here, but let's be honest. That I had said that I felt last year. I said that I felt that the Oakland Raiders were really looking to be on the upswing as far as that team goes. And at the beginning of the season, I even said that, I feel like that team is going to be really overlooked as far as the talent on that team. With the addition of Crabtree, everybody thinks that, in San Francisco, he was a bust, but really I think it was the offensive situation there that was going on with Kaepernick and whatnot. But I think we could all agree that if that team managed to make the playoffs, that team is a formidable offense that could perform in the playoffs. Don't you think that they have a playoff caliber offense?
Yeah, yeah, they do.
I also remember when Sean was down on Amari Cooper too, early in the year.
What? No, I was never down on Amari Cooper, but I was.
I will still take Andre Johnson over.
That is. Hold on, Johnny, you are incorrect. I was never. Hold on. Yeah, you were. You were down, or you were wrong. I was never down on Amari Cooper, but I was mistaken originally for 1 week, and thought that Andre Johnson was the better guy to take in your fantasy draft than Amari Cooper. 1 week. And you know what happened? We came on this show, and you guys changed my mind, just like we've changed Damien's mind at times and otherwise. So hey, we can't all get them right, Peyton Manning drafter? Anyway, speaking of Peyton Manning,
he looked good last week.
Listen,
he's a top 10 quarterback this week. Leave me alone.
Hey, speaking of Peyton Manning, we got 3 minutes left on this show. I'm not saying it's going to be immediate. I'm not saying it's going to be anything that sets the world on fire. But, guys, let's talk about this. And, Johnny, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the fantasy impact is for Peyton Manning and for that team with the addition of Vernon Davis now coming over from the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, it's funny. Me and Jamie actually had this conversation. I think we see this differently maybe a little bit, but I think this is a great thing for him because now you're getting someone that can fit into that Julius Thomas role who's better than Julius Thomas. And I think as long as Vernon Davis, physically isn't deteriorated and he has life in him, I think he can be a big factor.
They say that Vernon Davis. Well, they say Vernon Davis right now, and I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but they say Vernon Davis right now, the physical that he took when he was when he got to Denver and all that stuff, and honestly, the Denver Bronco fans can thank Colin Kaepernick for this because Vernon Davis has barely been used at all. He's basically been a ghost there, and because he hasn't been getting the ball, because he hasn't been having to make plays and take shots. They say that Vernon Davis physically looks to be the healthiest that he's been in 4 years. They say that he is in phenomenal shape, and I forget who it was, but I was reading somewhere. They say that just in practices and whatnot, Vernon Davis looks like he could easily still be carrying around that 4.3 speed right now.
Well, I'm telling you, in any size league, I don't care what size, he is a must-add in every league.
Absolutely. Damien, you quick, we have about a minute left on the show. You feel differently?
Yeah, well, sort of. Yeah, I think his upside is top 5 tight end, but I think his downside is nothing. How much do you guys think he's kicking himself that he just missed his opportunity to catch passes from Blaine Gabbert?
Oh my God,
Here's my question, guys.
He's hoping that Peyton gets hurt and he gets passes by Brock Osweiler.
Listen, here's the question.
The better quarterback than Blaine Gabbert.
Here we go. We're going to end the show on this question, guys. Okay, you want to talk about Blaine Gabbert? Here's my Blaine Gabbert question. Who would you rather have at starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers? Blaine Gabbert or Vernon Davis? I'm taking Vernon Davis and the tampering rules that come with it. Anyway, any final thoughts? Listen, Damien, real quick. Any quick hot pickups that, or sleeper that our listeners should be playing this week in their fantasy league?
I mentioned Chris Givens before. Chris Givens is not a terrible pickup for the Rams. Dontrell Inman that Johnny listed before for the Chargers, I think is actually even a better one than Chris Givens. So there's 2.
Johnny?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed him. Yeah, I was gonna say Inman, but he beat me to it. So.
You don't have another guy that you want to throw out there quick?
Sure. Yeah. Dwayne Harris from the New York Giants.
Okay. Dwayne Harris from the New York Giants. He's actually, I think he's a good play as well. So anyway, listen, I wanted to say real quick, go over to DraftKings.com, America's leader in fantasy daily sports. Go over, sign up, use the promo code MOCKROLL and get free entry into this weekend's plays. And if you want a couple of good pickups that you can get at an unbelievable value right now, go over to DraftKings, sign up, and when you're building your team, you want to talk about matchups that are going to win you some cash against weak defenses for a cheap dollar amount. You can get Jonathan Stewart and Chris Ivory, who have been great fantasy backs, and they are an absolute steal right now. Almost half the price of guys like Devonta Freeman. So go to DraftKings.com, sign up now. Take Ivory and Stewart on your team, and you're on your way to building a good squad for this weekend. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in tonight and every Wednesday night to the Mock and Roll Show. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Mock and Roll Show. And we'll be back next week with more shenanigans and less Blaine Gabbert talk, I'm sure. Thank you guys for tuning in. J3, Damian, I'll see you guys next week